thank everyone for being here this morning. I know lots of you, but I'm so excited to say that there are many of you in the audience that I don't know, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to get to know you. I am the Executive Director of the Diversity Council, and we are celebrating our 30th year this year. Just had a big celebration. It's really exciting. Our purpose is creating spaces that are equitable and inclusive, whether that's in communities, in work groups, and where we are encouraging individuals like you to participate, to move to action, to stand up. There's one quote I love, we talk a lot currently, right, in the industry and in the culture about being woke and waking up to some of the disparities and the inequities that exist in our community. But my favorite new expression, besides this one, is it's not about the awakening, it's not about the waking, it's about the rising. So how do we stand up in our space and really learn from one another about what it means to be inclusive? Joy, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Joy Klutz-Horton, and I've been with the Diversity Council since March of 2018, so that's about a year and a half. And before starting with the Diversity Council, I actually worked in higher ed for 22 plus years. I'm currently in a professional transition, is what I call it, and I'm heading towards human resources, so I'm having to switch here. I went back to school full-time last year and got a degree in HR, and so I'm looking for full-time work. I hear there's recruiters in here.
She's only available for part-time work. She's looking for part-time.
Yeah.
You know why.
Love it.
Yeah. Joy is a wonderful asset to us, brings just a rich knowledge of the theory and the practice of inclusion and equity work. So we're thrilled to have Joy. We do our work as an organization in 3 equity areas, and they are civic equity, educational equity, and health equity. And wrapped in all of those is this idea of individuals finding their voice and coming into their full potential, their full earning potential, their full participation in community life, full access to the benefits that we have created as a society. So that's the work that we do. What we're doing here is not trying to change your beliefs and attitudes, but to change your practices so that your practices become more reflective of, someone said, right, that a core tenet of their business was diversity and inclusion. It came right in this area somewhere. So, how do we adapt our practices to really live that fully and change what we're doing? So we're not here to change you, but we want to change the spaces that you interact in and the work that you do. So really brief, a couple of things. Diversity is just a state. Inclusion is an action, and equity, right, is kind of that result that we want. Inclusion is also a result, but inclusion takes action. And equity is that space where things are the same for everyone. And this is really important to know. Things can diversify, right? So we talk about a diversifying population that's just happening by chance, or we can put intention around diversification. We hear all the time, we want to diversify our board. Can you assist us with that? But in neither instance, just the adding of individuals who are different does not create equity or inclusion. It takes intention, it takes work, and it takes being deliberate. So why is it important right now to you as you are trying to recruit, as you are trying to place people? This is just a snapshot of the diversity that we're dealing with. We have 5 generations in the workforce. All of those people through a generational lens communicate differently, learn differently, participate differently, attend differently. So it's important to understand that. And we also know that the cultural diversity of the workforce is changing rapidly. That's not going to stop. That is our shared future, right? Ethnic, cultural, other types of diversity, becoming more inclusive of population groups that have been excluded, like individuals with disabilities. That's our future. And it's incredibly competitive right now. So in Rochester, we have 0.4 of a human being for every job opening. That's down from 0.65 about 6 months ago. It's a weird way to think about things, but you're used to thinking in terms of FTEs, right? So it's just important to know. And here's some of our demographic changes, and this is the mid-year census data. So this was the 2015 snapshot of the change since the 2010 census. 2020 census is coming up, hugely important. Please, as employers, participate in working with populations to be counted, all of us. So Black African American population grew by 21%, the Hispanic population by 18%, and the Asian population by 17%. Huge, in 5 years, those percentage growths. So imagine what we're looking at. We have populations here in Olmsted County and in southeast Minnesota who are tremendously undercounted currently. If we get a complete count, I think the numbers are going to be staggering about population growth change. The Caucasian population, the white population, by contrast, grew by 2.2%. Now, obviously those are huge numbers too, but it's important for us to think about what the future is. And we know that there is this demand for specifically skilled workers, right? And that we have some things going on in our workforce and in the available jobs that we need to think about and correct. So 70% of the jobs available, or the jobs in the market here in our region, require just a 2-year degree or less. 70%. That's a huge thing to think about when we think about vying for employees and looking at who we need and what skills do they need to be prosperous. So we thought a nice thing to do before we really get into the hard work is to have a living example, a discussion about what this means in real lives. So I'm going to welcome Shelley and Lori to come and talk with you. Thank you.